Hi, welcome to Module 14, The Fight for Justice in Cancer Alley, empowering communities through data and advocacy. During this module, we'll take a deep dive into the issues facing Cancer Alley in Louisiana, assess a couple of other issues throughout the country, and do a good look at how they're using data to combat the issues that they're facing. The objectives of this module are to 1. Understand environmental racism through the lens of Cancer Alley and sacrifice zones. 2. To learn how communities are fighting back. And 3. To understand how data and communications is playing a role in this critical modern day fight for justice. The key words that we will address during this module are Cancer Alley, sacrifice zones, environmental racism, and story maps. The struggle of Cancer Alley. Cancer Alley in Louisiana has long been a sacrifice zone for our nation's addiction to oil. The area has faced systemic environmental and health challenges since the 1960s, with limited support for the communication despite requests for help almost constantly for over 50 years. In fact, the piece of property or the area, the 100 miles that we're going to delve into, has always been a spot of injustice. It was formerly sugar plantations. Once the sugar plantations were gotten rid of, not soon after the chemical companies started coming in. So let's look at the struggles currently of the 100 miles known as Cancer Alley.
Our lot in life is to intercede for Louisiana. Swallow all the spit, slime, vomit, and despair that comes to us on barges down the long spine of Mother River. We must pray ceaseless, silent prayers, lifting up our suffering in a chalice of baked Mississippi mud. We brush our teeth with dead oil and flush our guts with sulfur dioxide that we might be a worthy sacrifice.
Growing up in St. James, you had everything. You had your foods and you had gardens. You walk outside, take a deep breath of the clean air, and you wouldn't get sick. You can't do that today. You might take a deep breath of chemicals. When the first plant came, everybody was excited. My daddy would talk about it, and he said, we're going to have jobs, and they were glad for jobs. But they didn't know the other side of industry coming in here. Most of the jobs now are for people that's not local.
When I was younger, we'd play outside. We'd smell a smell, but we thought it was just normal and natural. And then you realize it's not just the smells. It's dangerous. And nobody's doing anything about it. Every one of my siblings, children, had bronchitis, eczema, upper respiratory infections, and asthma. All of our children did. That's not normal.
I've been living here in Reserve all my life. By the time we got to the 90s, our families as a whole, even my family, my mother died of some rare kind of cancer that we never heard of, and people that I grew up with, they began to question the number of cancer deaths. The people here, culturally, they consider cancer a stigma. They don't like to talk about it. They keep it secret. And when my wife was diagnosed with cancer, that's when I really began to see it, because she didn't hide it.
When I came out in 2016 saying that I was a cancer victim, I didn't realize that we had so many young people in this area had cancer, and older people. It was like they're afraid to say.
I first heard the term Cancer Alley when I went to college. I thought, oh my God, this makes so much sense, and it completely defines what we've been dealing with in this area for quite some time. Cancer Alley is, by definition, the long stretch between Baton Rouge and New Orleans that is filled with fossil fuel and petrochemical industry. If you just look at a map where the plantations once existed, or is now majority Black and brown population along that same line, it's also the similar map of the petrochemical industries and the build out.
I never really associated the industries with our illnesses, but I do know people started dying so fast. And we had one person died 1 week. Sometimes we had 2 in 1 week. Sometimes we had 3.
When I started learning more about what these chemicals are doing to our bodies, and that there was a connection between the chemicals that are in our water and in the air, and that those chemicals can cause miscarriages and infertility issues, that's when I started realizing, okay, this may have contributed to my miscarriage.
I feel like it's a death sentence. It's like we're being cremated, but not being burnt, but being polluted, dying from the inhaling the industries, going into our bodies, going into our nostrils.
I began researching Cancer Alley in late 2018. We looked across Louisiana and we found that where you have more pollution, you have more cancer.
What happens in Louisiana and along Cancer Alley is that we transport the fossil fuels, the oil, from all over the world. And what happens as part of that refining process of refining a fossil fuel or refining oil into gas is that there's a ton of pollution created.
The approach that DEQ and industry has taken is to simply try to point to a map and say, oh, well, there's some places where the cancer rates are lower, and we don't see cancer across the entire area at rates that are higher than the state average. That's not the question, right? The question is, are people who are exposed to cancer-causing pollution developing cancer at higher rates in those communities? And absolutely the data support that, yes, in Louisiana, places where you have more industrial pollution, you have higher cancer rates.
The industry is expanding on both sides of us, so we're almost sandwiched in between, and we make a sacrifice here in Donaldsonville. I'm a mother of 3 kids, 1 girl. That's my older child, and I have a set of twins, a boy and a girl. All 3 of my babies was preterm deliveries and underweight babies. My son born with only 1 developed strong lung. The doctor did not have faith that that twin would live to make it with the other twin.
We know that Louisiana has a really high rate of adverse birth outcomes, but what we found was that pollution is a really big factor. Pollution is causing health problems above and beyond cancer. Our study provides more evidence that people who are living close to petrochemical plants in the area known as Cancer Alley, who are exposed to hazardous air pollution, are more likely to have babies that have low birth weight or deliver those babies preterm. Low birth weight and preterm birth are associated with health problems that can persist into adulthood.
My son actually went to school to about 2 miles from the industry, and the air quality caused him not to be able to participate in recess because he would have so many asthma attacks. He would describe it as pinching your nose and trying to suck through or breathe through a coffee straw.
I had asthma my entire life. It does limit a lot of what I can do, but I still try and make sure that I can, run up behind my kids, and especially my 5-year-old. I grew up in Baton Rouge, and we moved to Geismar about 1.5 years ago. Just last year, my husband and I experienced a miscarriage. That was right after the abortion ban in the state of Louisiana. A great deal of the hospitals were turning us away. I spent a lot of time trying to understand why so many women, and myself included, were experiencing miscarriages. Complete strangers that look like me, that live in this region, have said, I've experienced that multiple times. And then, of course, came back to Cancer Alley. being one of the reasons. I think our state is going to have to, take a hard look in the mirror and understand that we can't keep saying yes to industry as is.
When I look back over the years, we're still at the bottom of everything. As black people, we're suffering the brunt of all the ill effects of this petrochemical industry. We don't benefit anything from that.
We are the sacrifice zone. We mean nothing at all. What they would like is for all of us to move, for them to buy us out. We die out, or they try to buy us out. So every bit of this beautiful river road is industrial.
There's no place like home. I was born and raised here, and this is where I want to stay. The industry will have to go, not us. And we will not be a sacrifice for the industry. 2023, we went to court, and we joined with Inclusive Louisiana and me suing St. James Parish Council for a moratorium.
We stand here today to say we will not be ignored. Yes. You will not sacrifice our lives. Yes. And we will not take any more industries in the 4th or 5th district in St. James. Yes.
I definitely don't want to see any more new industry to come in. We have enough.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Shmel Levine. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for...
I know that somebody has to be the voice for the people. And why not us? Why not me? My grandfather was a civil rights leader here in St. James, and it's in my blood.
Cancer Alley, the stakeholders are 92% black. I think everybody agrees to that. Certainly we are the majority of the victims, because we are victims here. If we don't come together and form an organization, form ourselves to protect ourselves, nobody's gonna do it for us.
We just see more and more battles and not enough support that we need. We get to tell this story over and over again, not knowing if it'll ever make a difference in our lives and our future. I'm really, really, with all my heart, hoping that we can stop any new industry from coming, unless it's green. But that is a battle that we're gonna fight to the end power. But they need to regulate.
I would like to see the end of fossil fuel if that's gonna make me live a longer life, breathe clean air, drink clean water. Yes, they could shut it down.
Hey, hey, ho, ho, fossil fuels have got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho, fossil fuels have got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho, fossil fuels have got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho, fossil fuels have got to go.
All right. A little bit of background of Cancer Alley. It was mentioned in the video about this 100-mile stretch between Baton Rouge and New Orleans. It is a stretch of land that was previously sugar refineries and is now, sugar plantations and is now oil refineries. It is a place where neoprene is made. A lot of oil is brought in from all over the world to be refined. You have a lot of plastics. You also have a lot of disposal companies, so companies that are allowed to come from all over the United States to dispose of and burn toxic chemicals in this community. And unfortunately, for a very long time, this has been occurring. And for a very long time, it's fallen on deaf ears. And in fact, even as we go along, we will learn some unfortunate truths about the elected officials in Louisiana, and to this day their continued belief, I guess. Maybe it's just they have to realize that this is a cancer alley, but they certainly don't want to accept it. So as we move forward, hopefully we'll be able to kind of talk through the tools that are helping those in Cancer Alley make a difference. We're going to look at just how close is this industry to the people living in and around or in Cancer Alley. I would like you to pay close attention to the locations of schools, look how close the houses are, and then also think, is this an experience that you have? Do you know of communities that might be wrestling with this same type of thing? I also would like you to pay attention to how maps and data are used throughout these videos to explain issues. And that's this video and the entire series of videos that you'll watch during this module.
Something is here killing us. It's a terrible thing to watch people die of cancer and realize the suffering that they're going through, and to realize that you could be next. Welcome to Reserve, Louisiana. This is the cancer capital of the United States. But we know that people in this little town is suffering at a cancer rate that's 700 to 800 times that of the nation.
We're in what's known as Cancer Alley in Louisiana, an area between New Orleans and Baton Rouge lined with petrochemical plants and refineries. Most of the towns here are poor and Black with extremely high rates of sickness and suffering. Robert Taylor has lived here all his life, and he's surprised he's made it to the age of 77.
Then my mother got cancer. My brother died of lung cancer. My sister's son died of lung cancer. My wife got it, my daughter. When it wasn't close relatives, it was the next door neighbor and the people down the street.
He's currently in a legal battle against a large chemical plant a few blocks from his house. It's the only plant in the U.S. which makes chloroprene, a chemical the EPA says is a likely carcinogen.
I think the emissions need to stop. I don't think that human life should be subject to the profit motive.
What chloroprene goes to make is a neoprene material that goes in wetsuits and laptop covers. It's more of a product that's made for people's recreation.
Well, that's a part of the humiliation that we suffer. We don't even have a swimming pool in the Black community. The predatory attitude that the powers that be have toward Black people has not changed since slavery. The methodologies and whatnot changed, but the effect in all of this is still the same. We're still deep in slavery in America.
Reserve was once a thriving Black community post-World War II. Robert's parents and many others were drawn to work in the large sugar refinery or farming the surrounding sugarcane fields. The sugar company closed in 1985, and now petrochemical companies have bought out much of the town because of its proximity to the Mississippi River, highways, and railroads. All that's left of Robert's childhood neighborhood now is this cemetery, which is ironically filled with Robert's relatives who mostly died of cancers linked to the emissions.
All of our ancestors here now are covered by this monstrosity here.
So you have to visit from here?
I had to either visit from here, or I can't go on that property without, I can't even walk across now to go into the cemetery.
This is the cemetery. Across the tracks, this is where I was standing with Robert. Petrochemical companies own all of the surrounding land.
My mom and my dad in there, brothers and sisters, uncles, aunts, my grandfather. But look what I've got to go through. Look what I'm up against, just trying to come and visit with them.
Robert teamed up with Wilma Subra, a chemist who is doing pro bono scientific analysis for the community. They hold regular meetings to fill the town in on what's going on.
Everyone's been exposed for a very, very long time. DuPont has been making chloroprene here in LaPlace Reserve area for 49 years and releasing it into the air.
DuPont operated the plant until Dinka took it over in 2015, keeping on almost all of the facility's employees.
This is the only community exposed to chloroprene at these high concentrations in the whole United States.
Chloroprene is released into the air during its production process. It can't be seen, but does give off a pungent smell. The chemical enters the body when it's breathed in, ingested, or absorbed through the skin, and is linked to liver, kidney, and digestive cancers, as well as leukemia, heart, and reproductive problems.
So in your opinion, is it undeniable that it's linked?
Yes, it is totally undeniable that the link is there, yes. We have the Fifth Ward School right there with the lower elementary being really, really exposed.
This school is a big point of contention. Robert went to school here in the late 50s, early 60s during segregation. It's still a majority black school today. The school has levels of chloroprene that are 400 times higher than what the EPA says is safe to breathe.
A large percentage of these students live right here as well. So they're being bombarded. These kids are being bombarded with that, some of them 24 hours a day.
How far away is this elementary school from the plant?
1,500 feet. So, yeah.
So it's just right beyond those trees,
yes, right beyond those trees. Those trees right there is the plant. People most affected by the negative aspects of it are the poor and the powerless, which in America, by and far, are the people of color, or black people. From what I get from them since I've been involved is just a sense of helplessness, powerlessness. How can we fight these powerful, rich organizations? Once we can get enough people to join with us, that's where our power will be. You know, we'll exercise political power. That's where our hope lies in.
All right, so that is a look at the current issues. This is not a new issue, as has been mentioned earlier. It's really been going on since the sugar refinery left, but it is an issue that has been long-standing really for hundreds of years, is the exploitation of this community. This is a long-standing fight. The land is, of course, overwhelmingly populated with black residents, and I wanted to show you this video to give you a frame of how those that are in charge are responding to the community that is very clearly suffering and struggling from these issues.
This is Cancer Alley.
It's not Cancer Alley.
This is Cancer Alley. Don't tell me this is not Cancer Alley. Yes, we are.
I'm very happy to have you.
Okay, we're glad that you accepted our invitation to let us come to you with our concerns. Our concerns are, we have too many industries in St. James Parish, especially in the 5th District.
I know thousands of people who actually work in the industries inside the fence line.
I do too.
That don't have cancer.
Well, I know some that work in the fence line and they had cancer and they died. Ask him.
Ms. Sharon Love, with all due respect, we all gonna die.
We all gonna die. But why rush it? Why rush it with these industries?
I told you, my main concern is the health and safety of our residents. And
that's
I
our
don't
concern
see
too.
the life expectancy of the residents in St. James Parish any less than the life expectancy of any other state in the country. Is it?
This is Cancer Alley.
It's not Cancer Alley.
Yes, it is Cancer Alley.
That's a myth.
That's Cancer Alley. All these people up here dying, 150 chemical plants doing cancer. This is Cancer Alley. Don't tell me this is not Cancer Alley.
So we kind of have dug into those specifically because I want to talk about the history behind how this fight has manifested for many years. I can find videos all the way back to the early 80s of people claiming and speaking up and trying to say, hey, we are being negatively affected, people are dying, and being denied any recognition that that is a reality. So the thing that has changed in the last couple of years, however, I think, is the connection and the bringing forward of data and data points and the collaboration that is occurring now that is helping you understand and helping the community understand that there's a 50 times higher risk of cancer than average in the United States. It was claimed earlier that it is much higher than that. It might be. High asthma rates, pulmonary diseases, liver cancers, and eczema are prolific throughout the communities most impacted with the petrochemical industry pollution. So this is a map of the chemical companies that are located between Baton Rouge and New Orleans, and they look at the cancer clusters that exist. It doesn't take much looking to notice that there are concentrations of those clusters and that there tend to be concentrations along the line where you see the purple dots. So again, that's a great example of using mapping and using data to begin to tell the story. Now, like we said, many of these concerns have gone unheard. They have caused the negative health impacts have been discredited. Yet even today, more chemical plants are slated to be located within the corridor. But unfortunately, Cancer Alley in Louisiana is not alone. Sacrifice zones exist throughout the United States, and the vast majority are in Black communities. This may not come as any surprise to you, but I did want to share just a little bit about a couple of the other fights that are going on throughout the nation.
And I know the story about Blues Creek and 75 homes. You got a coal ash plant. Yes. Coal ash pond. Yes. And a landfill. Wow. Community is 61% color. Yeah. 39% white. Yeah. Wow. So this is hurting everybody. Yeah, everybody.
The utilities voluntarily created millions and millions of gallons of water pollution.
A lot of people think that African Americans don't really love their country or their town, and they're terribly wrong. What we do disagree with is how we've been treated during those times. And all we're fighting for is to let people know that we love our town, we want to contribute to it, and we're just like anybody else.
I don't think any company is fully, tells the employee 100% of what they're dealing with. It just doesn't happen.
Big business and people like them, they just want to move you to the side so you can leave them alone and they don't have to hear you. They want you quiet. But the whole time you're suffering. You're suffering.
Communities all across North Carolina that for one reason or the other have been deemed sacrifice communities. They live in a sacrifice zone.
Around our country, we're replete with examples of certain communities basically becoming warehouses for toxic facilities.
most of the industrial legacy for the city of Newark lies in the Iron Bound. There's just so many things in a concentrated area that's less than a mile from where all the residents are.
You're not just breathing in one chemical at a time or one pollutant at a time. You're exposed to a barrage of pollutants.
We're the ones that live with the impacts of mass consumption.
People think you need a hurricane to do this. We don't. We just need a day full of rain. And not everyone lives this way.
We're seeing incidents of high levels of congenital heart failure, of asthma, and children having learning disabilities.
I can't call it anything else but a sacrifice zone. A zone that's been deemed these lives don't matter as much.
We can't keep sitting back and letting generations be affected by this.
To create change, you can't let anybody take away your power or your community's power.
So there is no doubt that throughout the country, whether it's Chicago, New Jersey, Louisiana, Atlanta, people have been struggling for a very long time. These fights have largely gone unheard until recent years, but there's been a big shift. And I think a big component of that shift actually is the access to data, the use of data, and the ability to tell stories in a new way. I do have one more video I wanted to show you, and it's from a 1993 Federal Black Caucus meeting on how a community in South Chicago was crippled from the pollution it was exposed to. Again, as we watch this video, I want you to think of all the possible data points that could be collected that would make this into a story that you could then tell out to the community.
It's horrible. I've lost a child through living out here. She was like sweet as sugar, you know, maybe a little sweeter than sugar. She was almost 3. It's called neuroblastoma, and by the time we found out about it, it was in stage 3, which is like one of the last stages of it. I cried every day, every night, all the time, just about, you know, because I found out a lot of other people were getting sick with cancer too, you know, out here in this area where we lived at.
The residents of Argyll Gardens are surrounded by factories and toxic waste dumps. To the north, the Sherwin-Williams paint factory. And even closer, municipal sludge drying yards, which handle industrial waste. To the east, scrap yards, poison lagoons, and a municipal landfill 80 feet high. Also, a chemical waste landfill and a hazardous waste incinerator, which accepts a steady stream of trucks carrying liquid poisons. To the south, another man-made mountain of toxic garbage. And on the west, a steel mill with noxious odors and choking fumes.
We have Metropolitan Sanitary over here right across from us that put this sludge out to dry. And when they do that, the odor's so horrible that it makes you sick.
Hazel Johnson's family, like others, have lived here for more than 30 years. Hazel is widowed with 7 children. She worries about their future since just last week, 4 neighbors died of cancer. She wanted us to meet a brave young man who has a rare form of bone cancer. How are you?
How are you?
Fine, Diane.
Hi, okay.
Tony, how old are you?
14.
14. How much do you weigh? No, you look you've lost a lot of weight.
Right now, I probably weigh about 92.
Can you stand up? Tony Collins' colon has been removed, and he has undergone chemotherapy. Every day, he battles for his life.
I've seen a lot of the cases, you know, at the hospitals and so on, you know. These are very young children. I mean, you don't think about them, you know, having cancer, you know, at 3, 4, even, infants, a year, 2 years old. When something like that happened, it's just really, it's like, a shock, a blow. It's like, wow, can it really happen to me? Why us?
This area is an isolated area and a forgotten area. It brings tears to my eyes because no one seems to be doing anything about the problem that we have, and our health is being affected. These companies is making multi-million dollars while they're affecting our health and don't really care about the problem.
Our worst fears have been verified here by visiting this housing project. We've seen the results of this community having a high concentration of toxic waste dumps and chemical pollution. The air is polluted, the water is polluted, the ground is polluted, the children die, the adults can't live, can't work. And we feel that this is so grossly unfair, not only for this particular community, but for no community in America should have to suffer like this community in the south side of Chicago.
This morning, we begin another of our Health Brain Trust meetings. Some of you were with us yesterday when we had a panel yesterday morning on sickle cell, and then later in the afternoon, we had a panel on the subject of healthcare reform. This morning, the issue before us is that of environmental racism. Now, some might wonder why the Health Brain Trust is discussing environmental issues. The fact of the matter is that there exists a gross disparity in exposure to occupational and environmental determinants of disease, dysfunction, and premature death among African Americans. Usually thinks of a lesser.
So that video, as I watched it, there were a couple of things that stood out to me that I would love to put on a map. If you could access the health disparities and understand those, that would be awesome. But if you noticed, he visited a public housing unit. I know in my work that I have run into multiple public housing units that were, I think, purposely either located in areas of contamination or were contaminated because once they were put in, they were built around. Most of them that I'm aware of were actually located on contaminated land. So that in itself could tell an interesting story. I would argue there's probably documentation in HUD somewhere. If one was to submit a FOIA, they could find about contamination that they knew existed on the site beforehand. The other is getting a handle on how much pollution is actually put out in that community on a regular basis. What is the mortality rate? What are the education rates in the schooling themselves? What are the attendance rates? So there's lots of different ways you could work on breaking down this story, helping tell it in a way that would connect with your users or whoever it is you're trying to communicate to. A thing to keep in mind when you're beginning to tell a story, though, is who your target audience is. Because if you are putting together a story that is largely going to work in Chicago or in New Jersey, in places where these communities are already heavily affected, and you're trying to communicate to them, you don't need to start from ground zero up to tell the story. However, if you are trying to educate a community outside those that are affected or those that are most aware of that pollution, you do. You need to start from ground zero, tell them the story of how we got here before you move forward into solutions. All right, I want to do a little bit of a look of how these communities are now using data and mapping to help change the way that we are able to see them. These stories, like we said, are not new. They've kind of been around for a minute, but storytelling is at the heart of fighting back. So for the remainder of this series, we will focus on storytelling with data through ArcGIS story maps. What are story maps? Well, let's find out.
You have stories to tell and want the world to know. Now there's a new digital storytelling tool like no other. Introducing Story Maps. Express yourself. Share your ideas and experiences any way you want. It gives you the ability to explore what you love and show what you're passionate about. It's fast and easy to use, no matter your digital skills. Design a style you love. Create dynamic and thematic maps. Edit and show off your photos. Add custom text anywhere. Or make a point with side-by-side views. When you've finished your masterpiece, you can keep it as a journal. Share it with friends and family. Or publish it for the world to enjoy. Story Maps. Every place has a story, and every story has a place. Tell yours.
So Story Maps is a great, easy drag and drop type of a program. We'll dig into it in significance in the next module. But I wanted to go over a couple of different story maps that are helping tell the story of Cancer Alley and other sacrifice zones throughout the nation. So here is one put together by Adrian Moss, and it is a simple, like a WordPress type of a website. It is launched easily. You don't have to have, you see how it says Story Maps, ArcGIS up here. That means you don't have to have your own website in order to push it out. It tells a little bit about the introduction, the past of what's happening currently. And then there are these sliding maps throughout. There's black population versus the chemical industries. Go down, talks about the cancer from some of the chemicals, the spread of the chemicals. There's another map. I do want you, as we move forward, to compare kind of the visualization of this one versus some of the others that we'll see. This one's a little bit simplistic. They could make things pop a little bit more. There's your 5-mile radius around the toxic facilities, which ends up being pretty much all the 100 miles. And those are the different types with a 10-mile radius instead. Now, keep in mind as you're putting together your maps, you want to make sure that your graphs, whatever you're including as your data, is really helping complement and tell the story. So black residents at high chemical exposure. So there you go. Those that are located close by are disproportionately, for sure, having higher chemical exposure. Local concerns. So again, another sliding map helping us tell the story. And then down to a conclusion and some sources. So this is a very simple map, helps tell the story a little bit, introduce us to what's going on. Here's another example of a story map addressing Louisiana's Cancer Alley. You could tell is more visually appealing from the very beginning with this big, with the big picture. And then it goes into a video to tell us a little bit more about what's going on. Some information about the toxic release inventory. See, toxic releases. We've been working with those, right? There's the toxic release inventory. And that's a really interesting list of all of the different chemicals that are being emitted on a regular basis. Associated health risks. Again, if you want to visit these, they're in the more resources for the class, these storyboards. Look at the cancer risk. So there's your cancer risks throughout the United States. And you can see, even from here, that there is very clearly an elevated risk in the community. Same with the air cancer risk, which is said to be much higher. So this is 100 times higher than the national average, right? Petrochemicals in the environment kind of keeps going through. It really does a great job of telling the story overall. That's where you could see some of the plantations versus the spots now of Cancer Alley. Look on the right and you can see how they've overlaid the two images, right? So they've clipped those location points and made them, added that old map on top. Again, something that's pretty easy to do. And then it goes into zoning policies, and it actually just keeps going. But it is a very, very inclusive story map that includes a lot of data, a lot of background information, really kind of draws the reader in and wants them to keep learning more about the inequities in Cancer Alley. So it's just a great map, great version of a story map. I really like it a lot. All right, and so the next we have two other story maps that are about sacrifice zones in slightly different locations. So this is a ProPublica website. So it looks like ProPublica. It is a story map. So you can see ProPublica, they talk about poison in the air, formulate it. They're trying to tell the story. Most detailed map of cancer-causing industrial air pollution in the United States. So they've been putting together this reporting. If you click here, you can move to more stories about what's happening. And then you can scroll down and see their different articles that they've written about the different issues that they've been facing. So it's short, sweet, but also packs a big punch and gives you a bunch of information that you can use to then learn more about the issue without having a bunch of words. It's very visual. So it's a great example. And then the last one that we'll go into is about environmental justice in Chicago. So again, what is environmental justice? Starts with a video. I really like starting with a video to help frame, if that's at all possible. Goes into what environmental justice is. You might have seen, I just took that picture. It was in our presentation. Talks about the roots. Has lots of pictures. It's visual. Talks about where the pollution hits the hardest. So here they are with a map. And this is actually a clickable map. So I could go through and find these different centers and different facilities and learn more about them if I click on. There we go. Now you know how to reformulate that to make it pop out too. So it doesn't have the number here. You could really kind of dig in and make that sing a little bit more with some of the skills we learned earlier. How does air quality affect you? So here's an air quality map. So this is real time being pulled in, which is great. And then what can you do? Gives you some very easy things to get involved. Gives you a way to stand up. So short, sweet, again, little bit of information, but can pack a big punch. It can be really helpful for communicating out to the general public what your community is facing. So one of the things I think that has been the biggest boom to environmental justice issues over the last couple of years has been the growth of using data, the growth of storytelling, and the connectivity of working cross communities, cross studies, so professions, to kind of help tell the web of the story. So every community needs a web around it in order to truly get the voice out. And I think that's grown as our access to digital, and that has definitely helped change the playing field. So I want to share just a couple of few minutes of hopefully inspiration, but reality when it comes to this kind of work. I very much think that this work is at the heart of saving our communities, but it is not easy work. In fact, it can be really, really difficult. One thing you have to keep in mind that is, if you are trying to break a system of discrimination that has existed long before you, that is not going to happen in a day. There's just no way. So making sure that you're building up your storytelling, you're bringing in that data, and that you're using the media are critical components to protecting your community, particularly if you are taking on a vicious industry like the petrochemical industry. So this article in The Guardian is actually less than 6 months old, and it's about the Louisiana governor accused of using public records law, so using the FOIA law, to intimidate EPA and Cancer Alley communities. So EPA launched an environmental justice inquiry into Cancer Alley. Louisiana responded by turning in a FOIA to get all of the documents that EPA has had communications with media and the locals in St. John's Parish. So it's pretty clear that Louisiana thinks it is quite okay to intimidate its citizens, but that shouldn't be a huge surprise. It's not something they started yesterday. I also want you to keep in mind that the hits are going to come. You have to expect them. Like I said, these injustices that occur didn't happen overnight, and there's no way to fix them overnight. You have to expect that a win will increase attention and a viral video will create a lashback. Expecting that, expecting the lashback, expecting the blowback will make it easier to handle. If you go into these fights thinking that you're going to solve your problem in a year and then everything's going to be done, you are going to be heartbroken year 1, 2, all the way up to year 7. So you have to go into it knowing you want incremental changes, you want wins. Too big of a win can cause a lashback, and that you have to expect the lashback, because the people that have been perpetuating the situation that exists are going to be quite upset that you're pushing back. And if they did not have political power, they wouldn't be in the situation they are in now. So gear up for the long haul. Don't let the losses defeat you. You've got to keep fighting, keep making your voices heard, keep spreading the word.
The EPA dropped its investigation into Louisiana's Cancer Alley and its link to racial discrimination, plunging environmental advocates into a state of unrest. Kara St. Cyr rehashes the details of the investigation and talks to advocates about the future of anti-pollution work in St. James Parish.
We got this picture when we marched to the Capitol in Baton Rouge, Robert Taylor and Pat Bryan and myself. I forgot, I don't know the date. They don't like to put dates on things.
Sharon Levine is somewhat of a local celebrity in St. James Parish. She's plastered on newspaper articles as the face of anti-air pollution advocacy.
I met a lot of people, and they are concerned about what's going on in St. James. And just like I said, we brought our complaint to them. We don't wait till they come to us.
In 2018, she founded Rise St. James to fight the influx of air pollution. Her focus was to limit industrialization by advocating against Formosa Plastics, a petrochemical plant being built near her parish. That litigation is still pending. Her second focus was to limit emissions from already existing industries like Dinka, a petrochemical plant that emits a known carcinogen, chloroprene.
My neighbor on this side of me died with cancer. My neighbor on that side died with cancer. And we have so many other people that have cancer right now as we speak. Right down the street, there's a lady with cancer. A lady I work with cancer. A whole slew of people with cancer.
Dinka is one of many industries lining the 85-mile stretch of land dubbed Cancer Alley. It starts near Plaquemine and ends in the river parishes near New Orleans. The stretch is the focus of criticism from environmental activists all over the state, the country, really. But last year, the complaints made it all the way to the Environmental Protection Agency. The EPA promised an investigation.
The residents of Cancer Alley have been facing a disproportionate exposure to environmental harms for decades. And EPA accepted for investigation a complaint grounded in civil rights.
Debbie Chiselwer is an attorney with Earth Justice, a group that asked the EPA to investigate. She says the agency's initial report suggested evidence of discrimination.
They were looking to see if, in fact, the residents had adverse and disparate health impacts from these exposures.
The EPA was investigating whether actions by LDEQ and the Department of Health adversely affected the Black communities near these areas. The Dinka facility, the location where Formosa Plastics would be built, and Cancer Alley as a whole. The initial report raised concerns about the health of students and residents near those places.
EPA's initial factual investigation strongly suggests that Louisiana residents who identify as Black and are living and/or attending school near the Dinka facility have been subjected to adverse and disparate health impacts as a result of the Louisiana Department of Environmental Quality's decisions.
In May, the state of Louisiana filed a lawsuit against the EPA, accusing the agency of abusing its power. The Dinka plant also weighed in, accusing the EPA of advancing a political agenda. The next month, on June 27th, the EPA dropped its investigation.
I feel hurt. I feel disappointed because we are the victims and we are not being protected. And I feel like LDEQ should protect us. And I feel like EPA should protect us. And I feel like, first of all, our officials, local officials, now governor, are not protecting us.
We reached out to the EPA for an interview, but were declined. In a statement, a spokesperson for the agency wrote that on June 27, 2023, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, Office of Environmental Justice and External Civil Rights, and the Office of External Civil Rights Compliance issued letters administratively closing its investigation of complaints. They went on to say that they remain, quote, fully committed to improving environmental conditions in St. John the Baptist and St. James parishes.
From high school, that's Michaela, that's my little granddaughter. The EPA told us that they will come down and have a meeting with us to explain why they made that decision. And I believe them, and I still have confidence in them.
Levine says now isn't the time to quit. It's back to the drawing board.
This is my home, and I'm not about to leave. And God, when he spoke to me, I asked him if I should leave, and he told me no. So I received my answer from him, and he told me to fight.
We also reached out to LDEQ for an interview, but they declined as well. They did release a statement, quote, LDEQ is satisfied with the outcome of the EPA Title VI investigation of complaints filed against LDEQ. In court filings, EPA noted that those complaints have now been resolved and the investigations closed without any finding of a Title VI violation. EPA advised LDEQ Secretary Gingles on June 27th that it had closed the complaints.
So I show you that to see it's incredibly disheartening. It's incredibly sad. It very clearly, there is a huge issue in Cancer Alley, and it doesn't make sense. You finally get to the point where somebody's paying attention, and then those that have put you in the situation you find yourself in are able to maneuver once again. But things are a little bit different this time. So with data transparency, with the enhancement of the communications, with some of this, the bridging that has happened throughout the community and throughout the state, you cannot Google Cancer Alley and find those easily that are discrediting it anymore. So times are changing. And the winds will come. So real change happens incrementally. Each time there is a big issue, that every time that somebody learns about your issue and buys in, that is one more person at your side. So huge wins are often met with huge pendulum swings, right? So look at the difference between our two presidents. Lashbacks and devastating steps backwards. We've had recent decisions out of the Supreme Court that have taken years of advancement away. But don't overlook the opportunities to take baby steps, because like building a pyramid, you have to build a wide base to get to the top. Got one more video here I want to show you that was just a couple weeks ago.
Attorney General says she's against the new rule by the Environmental Protection Agency that requires hundreds of chemical plants to reduce toxic emissions. So in a statement sent to Fox 8, Liz Merrill says this regulation is a new assault by the Biden administration and misguided climate activists funded by interest groups to shut down the fossil fuel and petrochemical industries in Louisiana and this nation. And then she goes on to say these efforts are nothing more than political theater during an election year. The ruling will significantly reduce emissions of chloroprene at the Denka plant in Laplace. The Justice Department sued Denka last year, saying it released unsafe concentrations of chloroprene near homes and near schools. In 2016, federal regulators determined chloroprene emissions from Denka were contributing to the highest cancer risk of any place in the United States. Resident Lydia Gerard, who has lived in that area nearly her entire life, says that the EPA's rule is a step in the right direction.
We just hope that it continues and there won't be a lot of stumbling blocks and it goes into effect.
Democratic U.S. Congressman from Louisiana, Troy Carter, tells us the ruling is a monumental step. Denka says it has complied with air permitting requirements and opposed this action. It says the rule is another attempt to drive a policy agenda unsupported by law or by science.
So, it may not always work out that you are able to defend your community and have every single win out the gate. However, little wins can lead to big wins, and success is often won in increments. So, this is the end of this module, and as we get into the next one, I would encourage you to dig in, think about how you want to tell your story, and as we launch into the next module, we will begin pulling a story map together that will include all of the files that you've pulled throughout the course, and we'll see what we come up with. But before you start that one, you might want to think, what's my story? What do I want to tell? And as we dig into this, I hope that you're able to help put that story together by the end of this course.